Cool. Hey everybody, welcome to Pixelated Geek presents TriPod, which is a live video podcast featuring JJ Crass. Say hello, JJ.
Hello.
Hey, that's like 3 in a row that I actually called you JJ. I'm proud of myself. Yay! And then that chuckle that you heard was Taylor Tate.
Hello, everyone.
Hey. And I'm James Honeycutt. Today is the 26th of May. It's Tuesday, the 26th. We're broadcasting live on Hangouts on Air, Twitch, through our YouTube channel, and the recording can be found on both YouTube and Twitch a little bit later. If you'd like to comment or respond to any of the content that we provide today, we can be reached via any of the above locations as well as at social at PixelatedGeek.com. So it's kind of been a slow couple of weeks. There have been some news pieces that have cropped up, but there hasn't been anything really super exciting to talk about until yesterday. And yesterday was sort of like a confluence of leaks. There was a massive amount of Star Citizen content that was leaked. And there was also the first episode, the entire episode, in both HD and standard definition of Supergirl, which was the show that they just, we just saw the trailer for. So we kind of wanted to just sort of talk about leaks, not just specifically, but also sort of what they mean for the industry, the impact on the companies that are being leaked from, the impact on the games themselves, and then on the community. So first of all, I kind of want to talk about the Supergirl one, because it kind of raises a point that I've been kind of wondering about lately. So back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, we saw this sort of rush of guerrilla marketing stunts. Not really like augmented reality games, but like you guys remember I Love Bees, right?
Yeah, for Halo 2.
Yeah. Taylor, do you know what I Love Bees is?
I didn't actually like go through and experience it firsthand. I wasn't paying enough attention, but I have gone back and looked at the kind of like retelling of it.
Sweet. So, I mean, just to give a refresher out there, it was essentially a marketing stunt that was done by Bungie to promote Halo 2. And you could like dig through a bunch of web pages and forum posts, and it essentially was just, it was intended to catch you up in it, to sort of, what is this? What is this thing? You know, what are these symbols? What are these clues that we're decoding? And it got a lot of people sort of invested in a product without even telling them what the product was. So that was a very common like marketing stunt. I Love Bees is the best example, but what's another good one? I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Everything I'm thinking of hasn't necessarily been a leak of a sort. It's been more of because they did a similar one for, what was it? I want to say it was Halo 5. It was just recently. I've kind of dropped off the Reddit sphere. So
you're talking about the thing that's like Locke versus the Chief.
Yeah. There was a whole community thing to like solve parts of the image that like eventually they revealed the whole thing. That's the most recent one that jumps to my mind. And then even like, I guess even it's not even less of a marketing thing, but I guess it just kind of has fueled people's enjoyment of like puzzles like that community used to work through to try and solve. You can look like in-game challenges of like the Phantom Prospect program in Battlefield 4. Mm-hmm. Just kind of that whole kind of experience is something that apparently that very clearly people enjoy doing, and so even if it's not for marketing, they still do it and to kind of keep people involved in whatever the product is.
Right, and so the reason that I mention that is because that's a thing that Bungie pretty much pioneered, at least in this field, that worked pretty well, that people have duplicated to some degree. And it's effective as a marketing stunt, it's effective as a community builder, it's effective at sort of reinvigorating interest in something through a different avenue. And one of the things that one of the reasons I mentioned that, and one of the things I noticed about the Supergirl leak, is that it's available in standard and high definition and doesn't have any watermarks on it. And it's an unusually high quality video screen grab. And I wouldn't go so far as to say that, like, I think it was an intentional leak, but I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. And
didn't somebody do an intentional leak a while back?
I mean,
can't remember what it was for, but I
so
remember it being called out.
Yeah, that's definitely something that happens on a regular basis. And I don't love to go into this territory, but there are a lot of leaked celebrity sex tapes. And that always coincides with a dip in someone's career or a certain amount of unpopularity. And that's the best example that I can think of wherein leaks are used as a marketing tool. I'm having trouble thinking of another really good example, but Supergirl, the trailer got just panned. It was crushed by almost everyone I know that saw it. There are a minority of people who thought that it looked really cute and fun, and I respect your right to that opinion. I'm not necessarily speaking to that as much as just the common consensus was that it looked a little pandering, it looked a little condescending, a weird combination of those two. And it was sort of taking the super heroine back 20 years. It was very much like the superhero version of The Devil Wears Prada. And again, that's just the common consensus. That's the way that people reacted to it. And it's interesting to me that that reaction was so bad, and then just a week and a half, 2 weeks later, there's a full version of the first episode that has no watermarks, that's not cut at all, that's perfect, it's television ready for a show that's not coming out for 6 more months. Especially because the reception is really good. So, what do you guys think about that, Supergirl specifically, and B, the use of a leak as a marketing tool? Taylor, go ahead and take this.
So this looks more and more like a soft market test than a actual leak of the product. Particularly on a show that, like you mentioned, there was such a public outpouring of the opposite of support and enthusiasm for it, that the people behind it might be like, okay, well, let's see, how bad this is actually gonna be when this comes out. And maybe, we might lose people who are already against it, but maybe for those who are on the fence, maybe this will draw them in. Is it the pilot episode? Is it the first episode that was leaked, or is it just an episode?
It's the first episode.
So it makes it look even more intentional. What I think about them as a whole, I think more and more the audiences are becoming difficult to attract and nail down exactly what people want, which from a consumer aspect is not necessarily a bad thing, but I can identify a little bit with people who are on the other side of it, trying to create something for an audience that they'll like kind of what we do here sometimes. Mm-hmm. And so it can be particularly difficult to try and do that. And so I encourage trying new ideas to do it. I think with the Supergirl television show, you're playing with a losing hand from the start. But that's neither here nor there. I think that it's a fair ploy. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and it'll get it out there in front of more people than say your kind of weekly tweet of a poster from the series is going to, and it can generate publicity for you. I'm sure it was all over Reddit for good or for bad. It just kind of gets it out there. Plus, leak makes it sound exciting, so it catches people's ears more than just saying, oh, the first episode was released. Released is normal. Leaked is edgy and exciting, and being in on it is cool and cutting edge.
Yeah, no, I'm actually totally on board with you on that. I think one of the things that you mentioned that sort of hadn't really skipped across my mind but did when you said it was that when you have a TV show that you spend a lot of money to produce and develop, and then you air it and it flops, you're losing a lot of money in a lot of different areas. You're losing the time slot that it would have been put in. You're losing potential marketing that you could have had if you had a more sort of financially viable TV show. You're losing opportunity cost as well as the actual cost of producing the product. And this is the kind of... Because this is leaked, I'm more likely to watch it because it was leaked. I'm more likely to go download it and watch it right now than I am to watch it when it comes on TV the first time. And if I watch it and I like it... Go ahead.
I don't mean to interject, but I haven't been following the story. Where was it? Where is the leak posted?
I didn't actually see in any information about the original one, but it's on most of the torrent sites. So I don't.
Okay.
Yeah, and like
has it made to video streaming sites? Because I wonder if, depending on where you see it hosted, at least for maybe the origin site, could be a clue to if it's intentional or not. Because obviously, if it's on like things like the Pirate Bay, which is I think pretty much at this point an accepted honeypot, if they're in like quote unquote dangerous spots, a studio isn't going to want to try and get, or isn't going to even like want to risk people getting threatening letters in the mail from their ISP for trying to see a part of their show.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, that would be an interesting thing to look into and come back to next time, because off the top I have no idea. I know that it is on torrent sites because I've seen it. Mm-hmm. And I've seen like links to it, and I think one of the articles that I read on it showed like a link to a more legitimate thing. It wasn't My Free TV, but that kind of site. It was hosted by that sort of thing. JJ, what is your take on the whole leaked marketing and the Supergirl thing?
Well, from what I heard, people have gotten early viewings of the Supergirl show that actually wasn't that bad, and it was actually pretty okay. So, if this is kind of a publicity thing, they're not going to get those day one viewers. Why not give them a shot with this? So they can maybe, like you said, if they find interest in it, watch it. Watch the second episode as it airs. Because when I first heard it was leaked and that it was in good quality, it's kind of one of those. Well, sometimes people get lucky with what they steal. But it could also be one of those, they're going to test the market. And, like Game of Thrones, the first 4 episodes were leaked of the most recent season. And that caused a big thing, and clearly that didn't really seem like a publicity stunt. That was more of a oh crap moment for them. Usually just because most reviewers get the first couple episodes ahead of time anyway. Right. So that's why it didn't seem like a ploy. But, like leaked stuff... I know people want to jump on it and see it. There was that incident with, what was it? The Expendables 3, I think? It came out like a month earlier or sometime, a ridiculous amount of time, and, people were getting shut down for that. And they were saying it's going to hurt business, which I don't know if it really did with that one.
Well, so I think that's definitely like a good point to raise. There is a certain problem when you leak something that's incomplete. You leak it, at a stage of its development where the product that you're getting is not necessarily the end product. That can really damage expectations. And I think it's one thing to look at like Game of Thrones leaking 4 episodes 4 days before the season starts, and something else to look at like this, which is a 6-month lead time. Like, I buy a leak 4 days before a season airs, and the reason that I buy that is because it has to be ready. They have to be done filming before they launch the first one because of pre-process. This is 6 months early, and that just seems a little wacky. But you do raise like a really good point about what like the damage that can be done. So Half-Life 2 had a leak very early on in the process, and it was a different kind of leak. It was not someone working at Valve decided to throw some stuff on a flash drive and then, you know, throw it up on the internet. There was a guy who actually like hacked Valve's main servers, released a whole bunch of character models. It was 6 to 8 months before the game was going to come out. It revealed information about the plot that they hadn't talked about before, and it was a lot of work in progress stuff. So there were a lot of sort of criticisms of the quality of Valve's work, and that was something that, I mean, now granted it is Half-Life 2, so it's not like it hurt sales or anything, but it, like, I can see how that would be a damaging situation. Now, certain companies take that in different directions. So, like, what Valve did is actually, Gabe sent the guy an email. They tracked him down, and Gabe sent him an email offering to make him their internal security chief. And when he lived in, I believe it was Germany. They flew him to America. And as he got off the plane, he was arrested by the FBI. Because you don't screw with Gabe. But so, like, that's like one way that a situation like this can end. The stuff that happened to Star Citizen the other day, very different situation. What you had was a community. He's essentially like the community contact for their like IT team, I think. Disco Lando is the name he goes by on the forums, and he posted a picture, and that picture had a computer screen behind him, and you could actually like zoom in enough that you could see the URL, a listed URL in the screen behind him, and so people went to it. And it wasn't secured. It wasn't behind any sort of gate because it was an unlisted URL. No one would have just stumbled across it. But it had reportedly up to 40 gigs of assets, ships that hadn't been announced, videos that hadn't been announced, wireframes of the ships, white models of the ships, early texture gray models of the ships, apparently the entire FPS client, which some people are hosting right now. Like, there are people that are playing the FPS module right now. And so you look at Valve, who meets this sort of thing with like a hammer, a FBI arrest you on your way off the plane hammer, and admittedly the situation is different because this was like a guy that worked at the company, and like it was not likely that he was going to think about the URL behind him, and you know the odds of someone actually checking it. And then it should have been gated, blah, 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 blah. Very different situation. But RSI is basically just like, so, guys, please don't host this content. Please just don't. And that's it. And they're using it as a great opportunity to build awareness about the game. You know, like, everybody is talking. People that aren't interested in this game are talking about it. So, what do you guys think about, you know, the damage that leaks do? How a company should approach them, you know, whether or not they're a viable accidental marketing tool. JJ, let's start with you this time.
I think they can hurt people. Like with Valve, that was, you know, a lot of early work, and I know that because of that, they halted production on it and went back and delayed it. So that hurts the consumer, and it hurts the studio because that means they just have to throw out everything and almost start from scratch. And I believe that happened with Halo 2 as well. Wasn't there a leak on that one as well?
I can't speak to that. I know that I heard something along those lines.
You know, a lot of games get... I just think it's not good for anybody because the consumers who want the game then have to wait for a delay. The developers then either decide to just ship what they've, you know, had leaked or change stuff up to surprise the consumer. Because no one wants to play a game that's already been spoiled for them. Right.
So your principal concern is with, like, plot spoilers? Like, that's what you're saying?
And things like that.
Yeah.
And I think Robert Space, they're handling it pretty well. I don't know how that guy's job is going to go for him, you know.
He did, just to interject for a second, he, essentially there was a tweet earlier today, and I really hate doing this. I really hate acting like a tweet is news. But there was a tweet from him earlier today that said, heading back into work, so... He wasn't fired before he went back into work. I don't think they will.
That's good.
Because, the IT team should have had it, that URL should not have been accessible except by people that work there. And I'm not saying that's their fault, because he also shouldn't have had it on his screen. It just, that whole thing is just it's not that big a deal, and it's hard to say that it's someone's fault.
But... I think Valve. I think with Valve that's a little more serious because it was somebody coming into their territory and removing content rather than somebody accidentally posting it. And there's a difference between accidentally sharing something and stealing something. So
yeah, good call. Taylor, just general thoughts on the whole situation.
What JJ kind of hit on, the difference between plot spoilers versus kind of what we've seen here for Star Citizen, where sure it's things haven't been announced yet, but there really isn't a plot to be spoiled. No one's going to get a leg up on any other player by using what was leaked. It really only helps in terms of getting people more excited. Because I think I can speak from what I kind of gathered from James messaged us when the leak came out, and he was talking about the carrier ships in particular, and he was, I think fair to say, you can correct me on this, James, you were very excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
So I think that's the reaction that it's gonna that particular leak is gonna happen. At the same time you can't judge them all by the same standard. But I think that as a whole, legitimate leaks are actually harmful. Almost regardless of what they contained. I think that sometimes the game or product might get lucky if it is a leak that doesn't necessarily hurt the product. Where they don't have to go back, like JJ was saying, and work on the product more, redo stuff. If it just helps the game, then maybe it was planned and just looked really accidental, or they just got lucky with what assets were on that particular page. There's no telling.
Whole game, apparently, whole game. Everything that is currently accessible in it. Every current...
Which for any other game would be probably worse, but because Star Citizen is what it is and is not going to be completed until the year 3000.
Yes.
It's not anything too catastrophic.
Right, whole game as it exists right now is very different from whole game ultimately. And apparently there were some limited spoilers for the Squadron 42 narrative, but I looked through most of it and didn't see anything where I was like, that you ruined everything. Because what I know about Squadron 42 is that you're going to be a fighter pilot in space that launches off a carrier. And so, that's all I saw. So I already knew that. Sure, that's not a problem. But no, all it did for me was make me want the FPS module more. Because there's some, video of the interface, the way that it's going to work, some of the maps. And, I'm more excited than I was before the leak happened. And so I think that's great. And I think in both cases, the specific things that we're talking about today, the Supergirl thing helped, because I know that I'm more likely to watch the first episode and give it a chance because it was leaked. And I know that I was in the middle of this, where the F is the FPS module thing with Star Citizen, where I almost wasn't checking the page every 5 minutes, where I almost wasn't doing that. And this has done a really good job of just reeling me back in. But, I do think that, we live in a culture, starting with WikiLeaks, continuing with, obviously all the stuff that Snowden has and is releasing, situations like the fappening, which I don't want to go into, but it's hard to not mention. Those are the three that are the biggest recent examples. We live in a culture that's sort of obsessed with that concept of, us having access to knowledge or information or media that we're not supposed to. There's a very sort of forbidden fruit thing about leaks that are really appealing, and I think it makes it an amazing marketing tool, whether it's intentional or not. But there are situations, and I think the fappening is a really good example where like that's very harmful to a lot of people, and it's not always good. So I mean I think it's nice when we have examples of leaks like this, but you know, as both of you pointed out, I think rather well, we need to be very careful about the choices we make about leaks, the amount of information that we decide that we're going to make the choice to access, and I think that's an important note to leave off on. Thank you very much, guys. That wraps things up for us on the 26th of May. Thanks for making us a part of your day. We'd really appreciate it if you would do us a favor. Go ahead and subscribe to the Twitch and the YouTube channel. And you can find all of our archived recordings of today's and all the archival podcasts for JJ Crass, Taylor Tate. I am James Honeycutt. And thanks very much for watching Pixelated Geek Presents TriPod. Take care. Bye.